All right, so are you ready to dive into a company that I bet you haven't heard of yet?
I'm always ready for a challenge. Hit me with it.
Okay, well, this one's called Perfora, and they're making personalized electric toothbrushes and mouthwashes and all sorts of stuff.
Interesting.
And get this, their revenue has grown like 30 times in just 3 years.
30 times. That's huge. What's the secret sauce?
Well, that's what we're going to find out today. We're looking at a recent article from FinTraxor. It's a financial news site.
Okay, I'm familiar with them.
So they dug into Perfora's financials, and the whole story's pretty wild. And they're based in Gurugram, by the way. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know.
Yeah, so we're going to try to figure out how they're pulling this off and looking at, is it even sustainable? Can they keep this up? Because a 30x growth, that's not normal.
No, definitely not. Especially in such a, well, let's face it, kind of mundane market, right?
Right. We're not talking about some revolutionary new technology here.
It's toothbrushes. We've all been using them forever.
Exactly. So let's get into the numbers, shall we? Okay, so back in fiscal year 2022, they started out with revenue of about 1.4 crore rupees.
Okay, so pretty modest beginnings.
Yeah, it's about 170,000 US dollars for our international listeners.
Right. So where did things go from there?
Fast forward to fiscal year 2024, and bam, 42 crore rupees in revenue.
Whoa, hold on. That's over $5 million. We're talking about a massive jump.
Huge jump. And the article suggests this is all thanks to the rising demand for electric toothbrushes. They become really popular.
Makes sense. Everyone's looking for an upgrade, and electric toothbrushes are definitely having a moment.
And it looks like Perfora is riding that wave. All of their revenue is coming from product sales, so it seems to back up that idea.
So they're not dabbling in subscriptions or anything like that?
Nope, just straight up selling toothbrushes, toothpaste, mouthwash, all that jazz.
Huh. Okay, so what's the catch? This kind of growth has to come at a cost, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's where things get interesting, because their spending has also gone way up.
Way up. How? Give me the juicy details.
Like way, way up. Especially when it comes to advertising.
Ooh, that's always a telling sign. How much are we talking?
They've actually tripled their advertising expenses.
Tripled. Okay, that's aggressive.
Yeah,
Are they trying to buy market share?
maybe. Or maybe they're finding it hard to stand out in a crowded market.
Mm.
There's a lot of competition in the toothbrush space these days.
Yeah, you've got your big brands, your niche players, everyone's vying for a piece of the pie.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, are they prioritizing growth over profits?
The age-old dilemma. Growth at all costs. Or slow and steady wins the race.
Right. And here's the kicker. Despite all this revenue growth, Perfora is still operating at a loss.
Uh-oh. That's not a good sign.
It gets worse. The loss more than doubled in fiscal year 2024.
So they're bringing in millions, but they're also losing millions. That's a risky strategy.
Very risky, especially since they're spending 1.28 rupees for every rupee they earn.
Wow. That's not sustainable long-term, is it?
It raises some serious questions about their path to profitability, if there even is one.
Yeah, that's a big if. They need to figure out how to make those revenue numbers translate into actual profit or they're in trouble.
And the article highlighted some other, how do I put this, concerning metrics. The return on capital employed, or ROCE, it was a negative 75.94%.
Ooh, that's not pretty.
And then there's their EBITDA margin, which basically tells you how profitable their operations are, before you factor in all the other stuff.
Right, a good indicator of core profitability.
And that was sitting at a negative 23.23%.
Mm-hmm.
So for anyone out there who maybe isn't a financial whiz, what do these numbers actually tell us about Perfora's health?
Well, in simple terms, those negative numbers are a pretty clear sign that they're not using their resources effectively to generate profits, at least not yet.
Okay, so it's not unusual for startups to operate at a loss, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the early stages.
Definitely. They're investing in growth, building their brand, all that, but
But these numbers are pretty eye-popping.
they are. And they raise serious questions about Perfora's long-term viability. Are they making smart investments or just throwing money at a problem hoping it goes away?
It's like they're throwing a massive party, hoping that eventually everyone will chip in and cover the cost. But what if nobody does? What if the party ends and they're just left with a mountain of debt?
That's the danger, isn't it? Unsustainable growth can lead to a spectacular crash and burn. And that brings us to another interesting tidbit. Perfora has raised $4 million in funding so far.
Okay, that's not surprising. A lot of startups rely on outside funding.
True, but here's the twist. The lead investor is a company called Sauce, and apparently their decision to invest wasn't based on hard data.
What do you mean?
Well, their article says they invested based on lived experience.
Lived experience. So someone at Sauce just really loved their Perfora toothbrush and decided to bet big on the company.
It seems that way, which is a pretty unconventional approach to investing, to say the least.
Definitely not your typical due diligence. It's more like, I had a great experience, so let's throw millions of dollars at this.
Right. It's a bold move, either incredibly insightful or incredibly reckless. Only time will tell.
And speaking of time, the article ends on a pretty skeptical note. They're questioning whether Perfora has really proven its potential, or if they need like a blockbuster fiscal year 2025 to silence the doubters.
It's like they're saying, show me the money.
Right, like prove that you're not just all hype, that you can actually turn this growth into a sustainable business.
And that's what makes this so interesting for everyone listening, right? Perfora's success or failure could actually tell us something about whether this whole personalized product trend is the future or just a fad.
Like, are we all going to be brushing with AI-powered, personalized toothbrushes in a few years? Or is this just a passing phase?
Exactly. Perfora is kind of a test case for the whole concept.
It's a fascinating case study, and it raises questions about consumer behavior. Are we
Right.
really demanding all this personalization?
And what about the financial side of things? Can companies actually make money in this space?
Right, it's a delicate balance between ambition and financial reality.
Absolutely. And to really understand what's going on, we need to dig a little deeper into their spending. See if we can uncover any clues about their strategy and their chances of survival.
Let's do it.
So we were just talking about how much Perfora is spending, right? And it makes you wonder, is it too much? Like, are they setting themselves up for success or just setting themselves up for a huge fall? I mean, their advertising costs have tripled and their material costs have doubled.
Yeah, and it's easy to get caught up in all the excitement about the 30x growth and everything, but yeah, those numbers definitely make you think twice. Like, is it sustainable? And what about the material costs, by the way? The article doesn't really, get into specifics about why those have gone up so much.
It doesn't, and that makes it even more interesting, don't you think? Because there are a few possibilities. Maybe it's supply chain stuff. Those have been all over the news lately, especially with, everything going on in the economy.
Yeah, that's true.
And maybe, raw materials are just more expensive now. And we can't forget that they're making, personalized toothbrushes. That's got to be more complicated than just churning out the same one over and over again, right? So maybe that's driving up the cost.
Yeah, maybe. It's almost like they're trying to build a rocket ship while it's already in flight.
Oh, I like that. A rocket ship already in flight. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's exciting, but also a little bit scary, don't you think?
Definitely a little bit scary. So, where are they even trying to go with this? What's the end game here? Are they just totally focused on growth, even if it means they don't make any money? Or do they have a plan, for turning things around?
Well, a lot of startups, they prioritize growth over profits in the early stages, right?
Yeah.
Especially if they're trying to grab a lot of market share or establish themselves, as like the big name in their market.
Yeah, that's true.
But at some point, they've got to figure out how to make money, right? The question is, do they know how to do that? Do they have a way to turn all that revenue into actual profit?
Well, the article seemed to be kind of skeptical about that. I mean, they said that fiscal year 2025 is like make it or break it time for Perfora.
Yeah, I remember that line, blockbuster FY25 or something like that. So basically, they need to show that they can actually make money or they risk losing everybody's confidence, right?
Right. The investors, the customers,
It's like a test, right? And that's where I think things get really interesting for you as someone, who's really interested in this whole personalized product space. Like, do you believe in their vision? Do you think what they're doing is actually going to change the market? Or is it all just a bunch of hype?
It's a gamble. That's for sure. But I guess that's what investing is all about, right? Betting on a company's potential.
That's true, but you got to weigh the potential rewards against the risks. And with Perfora, there are definitely some risks. I mean, those financial numbers, they're not great.
Yeah, but their product seems to be working. People are
Yeah.
buying it.
They are. And they're tapping into something real, this desire for personalization. But yeah, those financial red flags, you can't just ignore them. It's tricky.
Yeah, for sure. And I keep thinking about, this is about more than just Perfora. What happens to them? It could tell us something about what happens to the whole personalized consumer product market. Like, if they succeed, maybe that means the whole personalized thing is really going to take off.
Exactly. It's like they're the canary in the coal mine for the whole trend. If they thrive, it could inspire a wave of new ideas and more investment in personalized products. But if they crash and burn well, maybe investors will get spooked and the whole thing could slow down.
So everyone's watching them really closely, huh?
It feels that way, right? Like they're conducting this big experiment. We're all waiting to see what happens.
It is fascinating. This is way more than just toothbrushes. I mean, we're really talking about how we as consumers are changing. Like,
Mm.
are we heading toward a world where everything is personalized? Our toothbrushes, our clothes, the news we read, everything.
That's a big question, isn't it? And if that is the future, what does it mean? Is that even like a good thing? Is it
hmm
sustainable? Is it ethical?
Right. All those questions come up too. I mean, on the one hand, you could have a toothbrush that knows exactly how to clean your teeth the best way possible, or like fitness trackers that are actually personalized to your body and your lifestyle. That could be amazing, right?
Definitely. But then on the other hand, you start thinking about like information overload. Are we going to be bombarded with like a million choices for everything and mountains of data about ourselves? And who's controlling all that data? Who has access to it?
Yeah, good point. It starts to feel a little bit overwhelming.
It does, doesn't it?
Right.
And it makes you realize that this whole Perfora story, it's not just about one company. It's a way to start a conversation about something much bigger, about technology and consumerism and how we define ourselves.
It's a great starting point for a really important conversation. You know, it's amazing how we started talking about electric toothbrushes, and now we're talking about like the whole future of how we buy things.
Right. It's like Perfora is this tiny little window, but you look through it and you see this whole massive landscape of like how technology is changing and how we think about ourselves as consumers. It's pretty wild when you think about it.
It is, and I think it's a good reminder that these deep dives, they're about way more than just looking at numbers and,
Mhm.
figure out if a company is going to be successful or not. They're about understanding these bigger trends and forces that are shaping the world around us.
Absolutely. And Perfora's story is a perfect example of that. I mean, they've managed to achieve this incredible growth, right? But there's still so much uncertainty about whether they can actually make it work, financially speaking. They're walking this tightrope, and it feels like they could tip over at any moment.
And it all comes down to this question, right? Are people actually ready for a future where everything is personalized? Like, is that really what we want?
That's the big question. And to even begin to answer it, we have to look beyond just the numbers, right? We have to think about the cultural shifts that are driving this whole personalization trend. I mean, is this really where we're headed? A world where every single product is tailored to our individual needs, from our toothbrushes to the news we read, even our health care.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it, and it makes you wonder, like, is it even a good thing? I mean, of course, it sounds cool. You have a toothbrush that knows exactly how you should brush, or a fitness app that's designed just for you. But is it all going to be too much?
Right. Like too many choices, too much data. It's the double-edged sword, that's for sure. I mean, on the one hand, personalized products could offer so many benefits, right?
Right.
Greater convenience, better results, maybe even a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. But then there's the other side. What about privacy? Who's going to control all this data about our personal preferences?
Exactly. And are we going to get to a point where we're just bombarded with information, like so much personalized stuff that it just becomes overwhelming? Those are real concerns.
And it shows you that this Perfora story is so much bigger than just one company. It's a way to start thinking about these really important questions about technology and consumerism, and even like what it means to be an individual in a world where everything's personalized.
I think that's a perfect way to put it. It's a jumping off point for a much larger conversation. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one last thought to chew on. Will Perfora become, the next big thing? Like, will they be a household name, a symbol of this personalized future we keep talking about?
Or will they become a cautionary tale? Like a reminder that even the most innovative companies can stumble if they can't figure out how to make it work financially.
We'll have to wait and see. But one thing's for sure, Perfora's journey, it's a fascinating one. And it offers some really valuable lessons for anyone who's interested in business, technology, and how companies are trying to connect with consumers in this constantly changing world.
It's a reminder to keep our eyes open and be curious. And yeah, who knows? Maybe someday we'll all be brushing with personalized toothbrushes that are powered by AI and thinking about these same questions we've been talking about today.